I started watching the parade of the 9th of May this morning because I was due to do an interview on um, television for I think Azerbaijan, um, and they were interested about why they weren't represented, why they hadn't been invited by Putin to the parade, but that had probably had something to do with the fact that their president objected to the fact that the flight 8243 had been downed on December the 25th, the end of last year, and that he had objected to Russia's attempt to conceal up their involvement and their responsibility in their missile, which hit that plane. And I thought it was interesting. Seeing the few minutes I saw initially of the parade, very spectacular. Some guards doing some very high kicks, and it reminded me a little bit of Hello Dolly, though. In fact, Imelda Staunton in the Palladium production, which I went to see more than once, was superb in that in that sequence, which finishes Act One. And on stage, a lot of the stage productions, I've always felt that that finale feels a little bit drab because we've seen what Gene Kelly could do on the film with Barbara Streisand and a huge parade, and it always feels a bit modest, even if it is quite spectacular. With Imelda Staunton, it felt spectacular, and so I place Imelda Staunton against Vladimir Putin. And I think, well, what has Vladimir Putin got that is possibly better than Imelda Staunton? And there's not really very much that one can place which is in Russia that is better than Imelda Staunton. Of course, the script that Vladimir Putin is following is the script of Novorussia, and this needs to be spelled out a few times. This is a revisionist history that sees Ukraine as the creation of the Bolsheviks, in need of rescue from the influence of the West, from the corruption of the West, and to be restored correctly. This is correct as the heartland of Slavic Orthodoxy, because it was in Kiev that Prince Vladimir was converted to Christianity, and the conversion of the Rus, and other hardliners, of course, like Kirill, want to bring Kiev under direct control of the Moscow Patriarchate. The Moscow Patriarchate is, of course, a post 1453 aberration. So it's late. Kiev is the soul of Russian Orthodoxy, and this Moscow stuff is all about land grabbing, and it's fairly well documented. It's as documented as the sort of documents which preceded all the fascistic nonsense in another age, and so it would be absurd to think that these are things which aren't well established. That the Putin regime is doing what it wanted to do, and it's doing it. This isn't a surprise in any way. Ivan Ilyin Dugan and the person who's got my name, Timofey Sergeytsev, Sergeytsev wrote this article in 2022 about what should Russia do with Ukraine, and it makes it very clear. The erasure of Ukrainian identity, the reordering of Ukraine as a Russian cultural and ethnic conquest, the destruction of Ukrainians. And that is clear. It's so clear. It's the absolute institution of Novorussia, this greater Russia. And today, as Putin is playing around on Red Square, Keir Starmer has sanctioned vessels in the Shadow Fleet on the same day, at the same moment that Putin is celebrating the end of his patriotic war and trying to redefine World War II. But the thugs of Putin are out in force. The Wagner Brigade, was the thing that dominated the news right at the beginning of the war. Now it's the Russian community out on the street terrorizing minorities. The evidence also of the torture of journalists and civilians, both Russians and Ukrainians, people like Victoria Roshchinya, who disappeared in August 2022, and her body was returned this February with signs of severe torture and mutilation, including missing organs, as though Russia wanted to hide what they had done. Vladislav Zadorin, who was a Marine, endured 28 months of torture in the Kursk detention center. There are others. Ruslan Minahorov, Alexander Sarov, or tortured by people who now can be identified. People like Alexei Baranov, who beat people, or beats people, I think he still does it with metal spoons. Leonid Rudenko, who is famous for his electric shock torture and the beatings that he doles out in Luhansk. This is a fascist state. This is the state in need of reform, the Russian state, and it's Putin's Russia, the militarization of society, the Z symbol everywhere, and the school curriculum, the militarized school curriculum, the indoctrination on TV designed to replace humanity and freedom with ideology, uniformity and fear. The same fascist agenda of terror, censorship and expansion. One idea of brutality that was seen in the 1930s and is seen again today. So when you see these parades of soldiers goose-stepping through the Red Square, don't think you're watching something new, something that has never been seen before. This was seen in the 1930s. And incidentally, it's done so much better by Gene Kelly in Hello Dolly. Before the parade passes by, and so on. It would be so much better if Putin got his people to reproduce Gene Kelly's rather brilliant parade. Because this stuff is old hat. It's all been done before, and there's nothing new under the sun, but we should be worried. And I think to finish it, it's worth pointing out that I'm not alone in observing that Russia wants more than perhaps it merits in any way. J.D. Vance said he made the quite damning observation that Russia in its latest round of so-called peace talks demands territory that it hasn't even conquered. He told Fox News in a clear signal that Moscow isn't seeking peace, it's seeking acquisition, conquest, control. Let's be blunt. This is not a negotiation in any honest sense that Russia is having. It's a wish list from a belligerent power still committed to imperial fantasy, and Vance, notably more pragmatic than perhaps he was in the past, than some of his recent rhetoric would suggest, admits Russia can't expect to be given territory they haven't even conquered. I don't think they should be given territory they've conquered. That's not peace. It's preemptive surrender that Russia is demanding. And Russia's maximalist opening gambit, Vance says, was expected. That's how negotiations work, he reminded us, with initial demands far from the realm of the acceptable. He added a crucial caveat. What matters now is whether Moscow is negotiating in good faith, and the truth is, there's scant evidence that it is. What Vance did not say, but what haunts his remarks, is that Russia has never really attempted a negotiated settlement. It has attempted a military pause, a regrouping opportunity, an international legitimacy for its illegal land grabs. It's a peace plan, but it's not a bridge to resolution. It's a blueprint for dismemberment. It's a recipe for destruction and for control. Trump, meanwhile, has grown visibly frustrated, of course, less with Ukraine as in earlier weeks and more with Putin. He's now hinted that Russia may be tapping me along. It's a revealing admission. Even Trump, who once claimed he alone could solve the war, now sees the Kremlin's foot-dragging for what it is. It's a performance, it's not a path to peace. The Vice President tried to remain optimistic, saying that the fact that the Russians are offering a peace plan at all, that's a breakthrough perhaps. But if the content of that plan is a fantasy map of unearned conquest, it's less a breakthrough and more of a bluff. And so we return to this fundamental truth. Russia's demands are endless and open-ended because its war is not about security or neutrality, it's about domination. Simple as that. And until that changes, until Moscow is made to see that further conquest will not be rewarded with legitimacy, no matter what progress they demand, no progress can occur. In the end, peace cannot be built on pretense and deceit, and no negotiator, however skilled, can construct a lasting accord on the quicksand of illegal, imperial,